This video is going to be about making the flywheel for the Miser Stirling engine. I have the kit and it comes with this 3/8 thick disc, and I've already done the turning. That's just basic turning. You go in 100 thousandths on both sides, and I'm going to show how to cut the spokes in the milling machine. First you got to put the thing in there and center it, and I've got a pin which is pretty closely centered, no drag at all. So that's the exact center. The next thing we got to do is we got to put a center drill in here so we can mark the holes and drill them. So we're going to have 5 spokes. So I'm not going to use the hole pattern cutting. I'm just going to do this with a rotary table because it's just as easy. It's not quite as accurate, but it wouldn't be off more than a couple of thousandths of an inch. So first we got to do is run this up. So I can get the chuck in there. Now we're going to put a center drill. I've already set the rotary table on 0. So this is going to be number 1 hole, and this is zeroed out here. So the next thing I'm going to do is move that out. It says 0.425 inches. So we're going to crank it out 425 and lock it. And that'll be our first hole. I'm going to put in a 1/4 inch drill. It's 72 degrees apart, so I'm going to crank this over to 72 degrees right there. Put the center drill back in and drill the second hole. And the third hole is at 144 degrees. Right there. (216 degrees) right there. (288). So what we're going to do now is we're going to drill the outside holes, and there's 10 holes out here. So the first hole has to go 36 degrees this way minus 6.5 degrees, which turns out to be 29.5 degrees. So I'm going to crank it out to this dimension, which is 1935, and set it at this point here. 935 right there. Okay, and we're going to lock that, and that will be the first hole. Hole done. And now what happens is this hole and this hole is going to be 72 degrees apart. So I've got to do the math and figure out each one of these, and then I'll set up the other side and do the same thing, 72 degrees apart. This way it's easier just to do all 5 holes all the way around, and then go to the second set and go all the way around at 72. They said they're 72 degrees apart, so we get 29.5 in the second hole will go 101.5, and so on, 173.5, and if you come out to the end, the last one is 389.5, and if you subtract 29.5 from that, you get 360. So the math is correct. $245.5. And the last one is at 317.5. drew a couple of lines on here just to check out and see how it looks. These are tapered, slightly tapered spokes, and as you can see with that down there, that's going to come out just exactly right. And I'm going to go around and put 5 more holes in there, and that will be the all the drilling. $160.5, $232.5, and that's the last hole. Now we've got all the holes drilled, and what I'm going to do is line this up with this plug. This is a plug that I made. It just fits in the 1/4-inch hole, and you'll see it'll drop right in there. And what you have to do is move the table over a little bit, and then I do it by trial and error till I get the 2 holes so that you can drop it in both holes without any trouble. That goes right in there, and you come back here and you're aligned. So I'm going to put an end mill in there and mill it out. So I'm going to take cuts of about 50 thousandths each, and it should go through there in 3 or 4 cuts. You don't want to try to cut the whole thing at once, because in this type of machine it's not rugged enough to do that. So light cuts are better. This is the second cut. I've rotated it 72 degrees and checked, and it's still in alignment. So I'm going to cut the second one. Now we'll cut the outside perimeter, and that takes a little more figuring. 30. Okay, so we should just crank around this way, and we should have it. There's one. Now we're just going to take the edges off of this thing here to make it a little more user-friendly. We set the stop up, bring it out there, and then go 5 thousandths, and it shouldn't hit any of those spokes. If I put that in there like that and draw that in, so the next step is to do these flutes around the radius of the flywheel. And I've already done one side, and I discovered it's pretty difficult to do all the figuring on how many degrees this is, and you leave yourself prone to mistakes. So what I did is I made up this little jig, and this is just sort of to keep me from making mistakes. The jig will fit right in here, and I just line that up with the spokes. And I'm not really going by the jig, I'm just using it for a reference so that I can see if I'm making a mistake. I'm going from 0 to 55 degrees, and what this jig allows me to do is take this out and rotate it to the next position and line it up so I can just do 0 to 55, and that way I won't make a mistake. First thing we have to do is get this centered, and I've already done that to save time, and that's perfectly in the middle when that's tight. So we'll crank that out, 340. Okay, and we're going to lock the table, and that should be exactly in the middle of that rim, which it is. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is put this little jig on that I've made. I can take the flywheel right out. And then I line this up with the spokes from the back. It's easier to do it from the back than the front. And put that back in there. So now I'm going to put the end mill in. Crank this down. Okay. Now, all I have to do is release that. Okay. Bring this down to there and bring this around till it just touches there. And that's my 0 point. And this is set on 0. So now if I crank it around to 55 degrees, I've got it exactly right. And this tells me that visually I'm right. Now we're going to go 35 thousandths deep on this, and I have zeroed this out. So I'm going to do this in 3 cuts. The next cut will be 10 thousandths. Now I'm just going to move the jig by removing this from here. Rotate it to the next hole. Line it up in the back. And we're going to set this at 0. There's 0 right there. Bring this in. Rotate it around. You have to bring this down to be in the right spot. And just rotate that until it touches. Gotta get another hole here. Okay, there it is. And now I can go the 55 degrees and cut that one. $55. Just going to bring that up till it touches the tool, and that's just touching the tool. I tighten this, and then I move it a half a degree, so when I start the machine up, it's not touching this little block that I've got on my jig. And that should do it. We're down to the last one here. It's the same process. Bring this down till it's almost touching. Bring that over till it touches the jig. It has to be almost tight. It just touches the jig. Everything looks right. Tighten it up. So that's 30 thousandths deep, and I'm just going to take the last cut at 5. Run it back again just for a cleanup cut. Zero. The fluting done. I'm going to take and round these spokes off a little bit and make them look a little more round, and polish them up. Sandpaper here. So I'm starting off with a 150 grit on these spokes, and just round it off. You have to do this by eye, so you watch what you do, because you can actually take too much off in one spot if you're not watching it. Just going to show you one spoke here, because this is an arduous process. I can still see a little bit of a flat there, so I'm going to keep going till that's gone. Okay, that's pretty round now. Now I'm going to go to a 300 grit. Just hit it lightly. And then go to a piece of emery paper and polish it up. As you can see, that improved the looks of it quite a bit. I just rotate it to the next one. And do the same thing. Okay. So now the next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to put the chamfer on both sides of this. And how I do that is I'm just going to put it down in the 3-jaw here. I've got a slug with a 1/4 20 hole in it. It's tapped. And I have this handy little bolt that I've increased. It's like a shoulder bolt. And I can bolt that on there, turn it. Now, that gets tightened with an Allen wrench. There's one more thing I've done. Some people are going to be horrified with this, but I actually drill and tap a hole in the chuck so that I can screw in this little piece of threaded rod to drive a large object, and that keeps it from slipping on that center. That gives a good drive. Just going to file the 2 chamfers on here. So there's the finished flywheel. I'm going to do a little bit of more sanding on the spokes, but it's pretty well finished. There it is. It's all finished. It's running pretty good. We're just breaking it in. It's probably got about 10 hours on it so far. And I still have a little more polishing and painting to do, but that's the finished engine. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the videos. Please click the like button and subscribe to my channel, and we'll be putting more on later. Thank you very much.